I'm Trenton, and welcome to the Sauce Painting. On this week's episode, I teach you how I paint white. What up, Internet Land, and welcome to this week's episode of The Sauce. Every week I'm bringing you guys new content, teaching you guys the secret sauce of painting miniatures. Most of my content's focused around Games Workshop miniatures, and most of that's focused around Warhammer 40,000. If you are into Warhammer 40,000 like I am, go ahead and check out my Warhammer 40,000 podcast called The Whack Crusade. My gaming buddy Andrew and myself talk every week about the hobby, competitive play, and then we get into some sports and some segments with our producer Josh. You can find us pretty much everywhere that podcasts are available, but I'll throw the link to our RSS feed in the description below. On this week's episode, I'm gonna be teaching you guys how I paint white. My style for painting white is really just a high contrast style. So this painting video, although it's going to be focused around white, you could use the concepts to paint all sorts of different colors. For me, painting white and a lot of other things focus around starting with a very dark model and building up to the color that I see in my mind's eye as the maximum highlight. So what this really means for painting white is we're going to start with black and work through some dark blues, medium blues, and all the way up to a very subtle kind of just top airbrush highlight with white. One mistake I see a lot of miniature painters doing is looking at a color and then just starting there, especially with something like white. By following my method, you're gonna really be able to build up a ton of contrast, which is gonna make your miniatures pop, especially on a tabletop. Now, with all that being said, if you guys want your miniatures to look like this guy, stay tuned. So before we get started, I thought I'd share my color palette. So today we're using Vallejo Black Surface Primer, Vallejo Game Air Imperial Blue. Then as a mid-tone, we're mixing that with the Vallejo Game Air color, my favorite color, Wolf Gray. And then we're mixing in a Vallejo Game Air color, Dead White. All of these kind of work together to build up and create white. Whenever I paint white, or really any color for that matter, I pretty much almost always start with a base primer coat of Vallejo Black. I think it's a great primer color. It works really well. It's tried and true through an airbrush, so I use it all the time. So you'll see me here loading it up, and I spray it on pretty thick. I'm not gonna lie. I spray it on fast and pretty wet and just trying to get the job done, to be honest with you. After that, I build up a really dark blue shadow color using Vallejo Game Air Imperial Blue. I shoot this at the miniature really kind of angled in at like 90 degrees. I want this going into some of the nooks and crannies, but not the deepest, darkest recesses, as I still want black to be the prominent, deepest color shadow available on this miniature. You're not going to see a lot of it, and you're really going to have to be looking for it. But in the darkest crevices, I do want this model to have black in there. So we're going to build up this dark imperial blue color kind of slowly over the top of black, kind of shooting the whole model at 90 degrees. Next on my list is mixing one part to one part Imperial Blue and my favorite color by Vallejo Game, Wolf Gray. This color is amazing. I think it's got to be on every miniature I've painted. It's such a great color. I love the tone that it has. And so you're gonna really see kind of here how this starts to transform the model from just kind of a dark blue black to now it's going to get a little bit more depth. So I shoot most of this at maybe a little higher than 90 degrees, probably something like 60 degrees, just to kick higher. So you'll notice in my kind of style and development over this model that I will, as I raise the brightness levels of the color, I raise the levels and the angles that I shoot the paint at. This helps keep shadows in places that they should be and keeps the transition smooth over the whole model. Next, I'll use Vallejo Game Air Wolf Gray. This is my favorite color. I put this on just super thin down, really low PSI, and I love the way that it turns out on this model. So you're gonna start to see how it slowly starts to build up, and all of a sudden, it's now starting to look like it's going to be white. It's going in the right direction. So for me, the absolute secret sauce to painting white is wolf gray. And you'll see in a lot of my videos, wolf gray is the secret sauce to a lot of things. But that color essentially is gonna give you that little bit of contrast between white and shadows, or else you would just be painting white on a medium blue color, and that just, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna be as good. It's not gonna be as smooth of transitions. So this wolf gray is what really brings the whole model together. As I'm putting on the wolf gray, you'll see that I'm really taking my time. Acrylic paints are transparent, so you have to slowly build them up over time. Shoot them pretty thin down through an airbrush, and don't be afraid to go over it a few times once the paint dries. Finally, we get to the color we've all been waiting for, white. I think a mistake a lot of painters make is starting with white when they're trying to paint white. White should barely be involved, in my opinion, when you're painting white, especially with an airbrush. You really just want your brightest points and your brightest reflections to be white, and that will trick your eyes into seeing a lot of contrast, but still saying in your brain like, oh, this is a white paint job. But all the extra contrast is what's gonna make your miniature pop on the tabletop. So this is super thin down again. This is probably easily half paint to half flow improver mixed down with a wet brush. So it's definitely thin. And so I'm really building it up slow, only in really the brightest spots of the model. So for a Space Marine, for example, the tops of shoulder pads. Alright, and here's some pictures of the final model. I really like the way this one turned out. I think this is a really easy way to get a lot of contrast in a white paint job, which is something that a lot of people think is really hard to do. So these are some cool tricks to help you guys achieve that effect. If you guys like this video, please subscribe. Go ahead and leave me some comments below if you guys want to see me take this model to the next level. I could take this to tabletop. I could take it to way beyond that with some non-metallics or kind of anything you guys want to see. Just let me know below. Happy to do some future content on that. I'll be coming to you guys every week with some new content is the goal. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button, and I will see you guys on the next episode of The Sauce.